Chapter 6. Drew parked the Harley and stowed his helmet. He made certain not to scratch his chest where the wire was. It was itchy beneath the tape. It was quiet down by the docks. This was more of an industrial area than the marina his team had staked out. Now there were detectives in discreet positions, waiting to see what boat came forward. They would then track the movements of that boat to find out the identity of the drop ship. From there, more arrests would be made, and pressure would be put on the criminals to name their supplier. If it were international, like Green suspected, then the FBI would be called in and the department would have done its job well. Drew might even get a commendation for this. Hopefully he was done with the undercover work. It was not something he enjoyed, trying to lead a dual life. It was dangerous, and potentially put his family in danger as well. The last thing he wanted was something happening to his sister Jana and her kids. It was also part of why he was not in a relationship at the moment. Going undercover carried risks. He did not want to involve anyone in that. Drew shook away the thought and approached the pier. A small group of men were waiting. "Harley," Sam said in greeting. Drew nodded to him. Red, Knuckles, and Law were there with Sam. Hendricks was missing, but Drew did not dare ask where the man was. "Boat will be here any moment. We need to unload quick. Truck is right there, around the corner." Sam pointed to it. "Red and Knuckles will take the truck to the new location. Harley will follow them to help split up the product. We need to go out early tomorrow morning. Law and I are going on the boat. There's a problem with a local that needs to be dealt with." "What problem could anyone have with us?" Drew made it sound like a small joke. He smiled and nudged Knuckles. Knuckles grinned. "He thinks we should get a cup for keeping his mouth shut." Drew shook his head. "Now, if he were willing to do some heavy lifting, that might be different." Drew wondered where Goals was in all of this. The man seemed to be content to make Sam manage everything. Drew hoped that when they arrested everyone tonight, that Sam would talk and give his boss up. It would be disappointing if he did not. They watched a boat coast up to the pier. "There's our man," Sam nodded. "Get the forklift, Knuckles." Knuckles left to bring out the rented piece of equipment. Red dragged over a wooden pallet, dropping it down so they could put the barrels on it. The forklift already had chains on it, and Knuckles got as close to the edge of the pier as he dared. Sam and Drew jumped on the boat. They manhandled the barrels to the side of the deck, securing one at a time to the chains with come-along straps. The forklift raised the barrel up and to the dock over the pallet where Red and Law guided it down, releasing it from the straps. 12 barrels later, and the 3 pallets filled, they were done. The chains were unhooked from the forklift, and the pallets were put on the back of the rented truck. It was a smooth enough operation. Knuckles and Red jumped into the truck. Sam and Law went on the boat, presumably to deal with the person who wanted to try to blackmail the criminal operation. Drew got on his Harley and was ready to go when a couple of men sprang from the shadows, guns drawn, yelling, "Freeze! Police!" He held up his hands in surrender. The plan that they had laid out at the station, Drew would get arrested along with the rest of the members of the gang. Each would be held in separate cells, preferably where they could not even see one another, so that they would not realize that Drew was missing once they were processed at the police station. Then, if they needed to resurrect Harley, Drew's cover story, for any reason, they would be able to say that Harley had gotten out on bail and skipped his court appearance. Drew let Monroe pull his arms behind his back and cuff him. He could see Red and Knuckles getting the same treatment at the truck. Monroe read him his rights, while Colby, Tony, and Jacobson secured the boat, arresting Sam, Law, and the stranger who had been driving the boat. Miguel opened the back of the truck, hopping up and opening one of the barrels, shining a flashlight down in it. He pulled out a small test kit and tested the contents of the barrel. Monroe pushed Drew into the back of a cop car. He shut the door on Drew, leaving Drew to look out the window. Miguel shook his head slightly as he looked at Drew, and that was when Drew knew something was not right. Knuckles and Red were pushed into the back seat of the cruiser with Drew, Monroe shutting the door. "Guess Law was right." Knuckles looked at Drew with contempt. "We got us a rat." "What are you talking about?" Drew's stomach bottomed out as he bluffed. He frowned at Knuckles. "You!" Knuckles growled. "Law checked you out." "I don't know what you're talking about," Drew stated flatly. "Whatever Law thinks is going on, he should have let me know so I can answer to it." Drew snorted. "Sure thing, Detective Colburn." Drew sucked in a breath. His cover was blown. There was no point in denying it or trying to bluff his way through this. He was surprised that he was not a body floating in the river. How did he know? After we told him about you looking just like that missing dude, Max Ramsley, he looked you up, Red supplied dryly. Wasn't difficult. Why didn't you just kill me? Drew asked softly. He was still wearing the wire. Maybe he could salvage something out of this. What? Go to prison for murdering a cop? Knuckles laughed. You got nothing on us, Colburn. We are going to walk. We have 12 barrels of heroin, scowled Drew. I don't call that nothing. Do you? Do you think that's what you have? Snickered Red. Some detective you are. Drew looked at them uncertainly. Miguel had tested the white powder. Drew looked back at the cops who were standing near the back of the rental trucks, discussing something heatedly. This was not right. He remembered Miguel giving him a look and shaking his head a quick negative. Something was not right about the powder. Drew saw a smudge of the white powder on the right knee of his jeans. He leaned over, sniffing it. Drew gave it a quick lick. Icing sugar, Drew said shortly. Knuckles and Red just laughed. Drew slumped down in the back seat. He looked at Red. What about the guy who was trying to get a cut for his silence? What about him? Red grinned. Sam threatened him, stated Drew flatly. Did he? Red raised an eyebrow and looked at Knuckles. Did Sam threaten anyone, Knuckles? Can't say he did, chuckled Knuckles. Drew thought back to the wording of what Sam had used. He had said they would have to deal with the guy. No specific threats had been made. Certainly nothing that would hold up in a court of law. Drew leaned his head back and closed his eyes. His career was about to go down the toilet. He had been following these goons around for 8 months. Finally thought he was in, and now he had nothing to show for all his efforts. Even the pictures Drew managed to snap on his phone at the abandoned building meant nothing. They did not prove that was heroin versus icing sugar. No judge was going to convict on the pictures alone. He wondered how bad the fallout was going to be. The only silver lining he could see was the fact that he would now kick Max Ramsley out of his apartment. Drew ignored Knuckles and Red. Monroe got in the car. He gave them all an unhappy look before starting the engine and driving them to the police station. Monroe took Drew out of the car with 2 other officers to book Red and Knuckles. Drew was taken to Green's office and uncuffed. Green glared at Drew. Shut the door after yourself, Monroe. This was not going to go well, Drew reflected as Monroe quickly left. You want to tell me why I just wasted the department's resources on icing sugar? Growled Green. Drew sighed. Law figured it out. He knew it was a cop and staged everything tonight. He expected the bust. How did he learn that you were a cop? Green demanded of Drew. He heard from the guys how much Max Ramsley and I look alike. Drew absently scratched at his chest. Then he lifted his shirt and pulled off the wire and tape, tossing them on Green's desk. Law did a search. My last name is hyphenated Colburn Ramsley. Obviously it came up somewhere, and voila, Law knew everything. As a result, we've got nothing. We're going to take some samples from the barrels, but it looks like it is all just icing sugar. Green sat down. Drew almost sat, but Green barked, Did I say you could sit? No, sir. Drew straightened up. 8 months of undercover work blown in one night. Green shook his head in regret. Colburn, you can cut Ramsley loose. He can go home. We'll magically find him tomorrow and have a press conference. Colby is due for a little recognition. Drew swallowed down that bitter pill. It should have been his announcement. It should have been credible arrests and a commendation. Instead, it was a mess. You should see what tomorrow's press is going to be. Green shoved a tabloid at Drew. It was a proof. Has Max Ramsley lost his mind? Read the caption. Sightings of the missing man all over the city with new tattoos and a facial scar. Wife wonders if he has amnesia. Pleads for him to return home. It had all sorts of cell phone pictures of him, snapped by the eager public willing to sell a picture to the tabloids. Sterling Denver was outdoing herself in selling junk. Whatever. Does not signify, said Drew. You're off undercover. You're a liability there. grimaced Green. "I'm putting you on 2 weeks of unpaid suspension." "Boss, this was not my fault," protested Drew. "How was I supposed to know that law was onto me?" "I can make it a month," Green said sharply. "I have to go through the mayor tomorrow and make an accounting of this. Budget meetings are coming up. You are lucky I do not throw you back to foot patrol." "Yes, sir." Drew squelched any urge to defend himself. It would not help when Green was in this mood. "Get out of my office." Green pointed to the door. "Yes, sir." Drew grabbed the wire and left. He turned the recording device over to Monroe. "That bad?" Monroe sympathized. "I'm off for the next 2 weeks," shrugged Drew. He took a deep breath to steady his temper. "Unpaid leave." Monroe whistled. "Sorry, man." "What are you going to do with the goon squad?" Drew referred to the men that they had arrested tonight. "Hold them for 24 hours, then let them go. Can't charge them with anything except maybe importing without a license." Monroe sighed. "What a night." "Press a little on Law, would you? He's the one who figured out I am a detective. I doubt he'll crack, but I would take it as a personal favor if you make his next few hours really annoying," requested Drew. "Done and done," nodded Monroe. "Thanks." Drew gave Monroe a pat on the back before he went to his desk. He really did not need anything, but Drew wanted to put his stuff away. 2 weeks was a long time to be away. Plus, he should write up a report and file it before he left for the night. Drew sat down and looked at the report he had left out from Bethany Searson. He really should look up that boat before he left. Drew did not like leaving loose ends, so he would make certain to look into it. Not that he expected to find anything. Drew sighed again. He was disappointed in himself. He should have seen some sign that this was a setup. He had been too eager for the operation, and it had bitten him hard. Drew logged into his computer and started the tedious task of filling out a report. Bethany was confused. "I thought you said we were making progress." "We are," Dr. Urshman agreed cautiously. "However, I am worried about the strong emotions you displayed while in the pool. I'm also concerned that you chose to try to trigger the memories on your own at the marina." "It worked," insisted Bethany. "I keep remembering new details." "Bethany, your progress needs to be done in a supervised setting. Otherwise, you could be introducing other elements and thinking that they are memories. There's a danger of creating false memories." Dr. Urshman set down a container with a pill in it. "I think you need to slow down. We should also adjust your medications again." "I do not want to slow down," Bethany said stubbornly. "The whole point of this is to find out what happened." "We both want to achieve that goal." Dr. Urshman grabbed a glass of water from the sideboard and set it down on the table with the pill in front of Bethany. "I would like to put you in a sedative state. I'll record the session and we can go over your memories. I will not make any suggestions, just let you lead the conversation. That way we can see if your memories truly match what you have recently discovered." "I thought you said that this was too risky." Bethany frowned as she recalled the earlier conversation when Bethany had first started coming to the psychiatrist. "That you did not feel the science was sound in such a practice." "Normally I do not like to use this process, but you've been pushing your limits, Bethany. It is time to find out what is real and what is not in your memories," explained Dr. Urshman. "Otherwise you will never know for certain." "What is it?" Bethany eyed the pill with some trepidation. She had worked so hard to clear her mind that she really did not want to take a pill to dull it. "Just a lorazepam. It will help you relax." Dr. Urshman grabbed a pad and paper and pen. She sat down and watched Bethany expectantly. "You do want to know what happened, right?" Bethany looked at the little white pill. She desperately wanted to know. Taking a deep breath, Bethany picked it up with the water and swallowed it. Drew glared at the television with a vicious scowl. Colby had not only gotten some recognition, he had his name and face plastered all over the national news. According to the official report, Colby had found Max in the building that was supposed to be demolished. A rotting floor had collapsed, and Max had supposedly been stuck there for days. It was a junk story, unbelievable, but the media was eating it up. Paget stood by Max's side as they thanked Detective Colby for going the extra mile and looking for him. Everyone was loving a happy ending. It sickened him. Drew shut off the television and tried Bethany's phone number again. He had called a few times, but she had not picked up. With a sigh, he grabbed his coat and keys for the truck. He needed to get out of this apartment before he went stir-crazy. Drew would think that he should be happy to have Max out of his place, yet for some reason it felt a little empty. Before long, Drew knocked on the door to Bethany's condo. There was something that had been bugging him about what she had said at the police station, and he needed to figure it out. Drew had looked up the boat Sweet Bethany. Sure enough, there had been a boat named that. It was owned by Ted Searson, father of Bethany Searson. Drew figured she probably had mixed memories, stealing from what was real with one memory and adding to it with another. The boat had never been involved in any known criminal activities, nor had her father Ted. However, Bethany had said she had few, if any, memories from her childhood. She did not remember things like learning how to ride a bicycle, the first day of school, getting money from the Tooth Fairy. These were all rites of passage memories that she did not have. Her parents had put her in therapy, and she had been heavily drugged since childhood. Drew had called her former doctors to confirm when psychiatric treatment started. It was shortly after her 8th birthday. Not long after the treatment started, Ted sold the boat. The timing of which made Drew a little suspicious. He wanted to go over Bethany's story again to see if he might have missed any details. Drew was going to take this very seriously now. It might not have been the drugs on the boat, but something had happened. Drew knew it in his gut, and since he was suspended, it was not like he did not have the time to do a little investigating. Drew told himself it was not because he wanted to see her again. He knocked a second time and waited. Drew could hear movement inside, but it took another minute before the door opened. "Hi." "Hi." He frowned as he saw her. Bethany was wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt. What surprised him was the food stains on the shirt. Her hair was greasy. She did not have any makeup on. For a woman who had been immaculate coming to the station just to fill out a report, it did not make sense. Drew immediately felt suspicious. She seemed sleepy. "Can I help you?" He looked at her in surprise. "Bethany, do you know who I am?" She stared at him in incomprehension. Her eyes and manner were entirely vacant. Her voice came out drowsily. "I'm not sure." "Detective Andrew Colburn," he reminded her. "We talked at the police station a few times." "Oh." She blinked in slow motion. It was like her mind was pushing through a fog just to think. "What are you on?" Drew pushed past her into the condo. It was spotless in the hall and living room. The kitchen smelled like something had been left out and rotting for a few days. He had a quick look and was surprised to see the door of the fridge wide open. The carton of milk on the counter had obviously turned sour. There were a bunch of prescription medications on the table. He counted at least 8 bottles there. "I'm at the door," Bethany said slowly. "Why?" Drew turned around. There she was, confused and staring into the hallway. A bad feeling settled into his gut. Drew grabbed a plastic bag and put all her medications into it, careful to use another bag to preserve fingerprints. He added what he found in the bedroom and bathroom, looking for anything else that was not prescription. What he found were 30 bottles of prescription medications, all prescribed within the last 3 months, most prescribed within the last week. It was crazy, the amount of pills that she had. He coaxed Bethany into the bedroom and helped her change into a clean shirt, jeans, socks, and shoes. She was cooperative, but entirely mentally vacant. She asked him once who he was. Then she told him she remembered that he was the guy who was not Max. She smiled brilliantly like she had discovered the answer to everything. Drew wondered what he was going to do with her. He could bring her to the hospital. It was obvious somewhere someone had just given her too many medications. Yet a suspicious warning bell sounded in his head. There were 3 different doctors on her medications. Over half the bottles had been prescribed by one doctor in particular, all within the past 3 days. After Bethany had been trying to understand what had happened to her regarding the drugs she thought she had seen years ago, a psychiatrist that was often on call to the hospital. What he needed was a second medical opinion, Drew decided. He pulled out his phone and called Mercy Hospital. Drew grimaced as he identified himself to the night nurse. "Detective Andrew Colburn. I'm looking for the nurse who treated me about 6 months ago," he said. "I did not catch her name, and she helped to save my life. She was short, maybe just over 5 feet tall, had dimples, looks impossibly young. Dark blonde hair?" "You mean Kelly," the nurse gushed. "I remember. You're the guy who collapsed in the parking lot." "That would be me." Drew bit back his irritation. "I would like to thank her. Do you happen to have her phone number?" "We can't give that information out," the nurse said regretfully. "Even if we could, Kelly is no longer working at Mercy Hospital." "What happened?" he asked in surprise. "You got her fired." She hurried to explain. "Well, not you, really. But Kelly disobeyed hospital policy by going to the parking lot to find you. She lost her job over it." "That is terrible." Drew tried to think about how else he might get a second medical opinion. "Thanks for letting me know." He hung up on the nurse's response and looked at Bethany, who was staring at a painting on the wall. "When did you get tattooed, Max?" Kelly had said when she saw him at the hospital that day. That meant she knew Max Ramsley, which meant Max Ramsley knew Kelly. Drew grabbed his wallet to find Max's business card, but something small caught his eye. If he had not seen small cameras planted before and had not put a few in place himself, he never would have guessed that the video recorder was there. Drew immediately turned and shoved his wallet back into his pocket. There is no way to do this without alerting whoever was watching. Soon they would be on to him anyways. Drew used his phone to snap a photo of the camera. With a hand, he urged Bethany to her feet. At the foyer, he slipped a coat onto her, doing up the zipper like she was a child. He packed her overnight bag, making sure to get the drugs, her purse, and keys. Drew took a quick look through the apartment, snapping photos before he locked the door after them and coaxed her into his truck. It was not hard. He scowled at the feeling that she had no idea what was going on. It put a bad sensation into his stomach, and Drew wondered that anyone without any morals could do to her in this state. Hopefully, the audio on the camera weren't good enough to pick up Kelly's name. He needed to contact her, but now he felt paranoid. Someone had gone through great lengths to bug Bethany's apartment. His trained eye had spotted 2 other cameras, and he knew there had to be more. Whoever had put them in had done a bit of a sloppy job. Then again, with Bethany so drugged, they could have set a full-sized, old-school camcorder on the kitchen table, and she would have not understood what was happening. He paid a parking meter and pulled Bethany from the truck, bringing her bag. Drew had to get buzzed in. He chose to get the lobby staff to do it, showing off his badge. He did not bother to admire the posh interior of the downtown condo. He was more concerned about Bethany. Drew barely had to knock before a surprised Max Ramsley opened the door. "Did you miss me?" Max grinned as he saw Drew. Drew did not bother with the pleasantries. He knew that Max and Bethany were acquainted from their previous conversations. "Have you ever seen her like this?" "Aye, Bethany." Max's smile faded as he watched Bethany carefully. It took her a moment to even notice him or his extended hand. She gracefully put her hand in Max's. "Are there 2 of you?" "Excuse me?" Max asked, starting to get worried. Bethany looked at Drew. 2 Maxes. "I am Drew, remember? Detective Andrew Colburn." Drew frowned at Bethany. He was distracted as he spotted 2 other men in the apartment. It was obvious they were related to Max. "Did we come at a bad time? I need your help." "What happened to her?" Max was concerned. "Beth, come here and have a seat at the table." "Okay." She allowed herself to be led and seated by Drew. "Who are you?" Noah scowled at the new arrivals. "What did you do to Beth?" "Nothing. I found her like this." Drew gave them a sharp glare. "He's a cop," Max defended him. "He saved my life. Remember, I was just telling you about that." "What is going on?" Drew directed the question to Max. He knew from his research who Michael and Noah Ramsley were. He did not have to ask. "Michael and Noah, this is Andrew." Max made the introductions proudly. "Our other brother." Noah just about spit out his teeth. He was so shocked. "Our what?" "I was just telling them about my exciting day when you knocked," Max explained to Drew. He grinned at Noah and Michael. "He's our other brother. Well, half-brother. Isn't it cool?" "No!" exploded Noah. "It is not cool. That would mean Dad had an affair." Max shrugged and nodded. "Yup." "This is crazy." Noah looked at Michael and paused in shock at his brother's expression. Suddenly, he burst out angrily. "You knew!" Michael rubbed a hand over his face and sighed. He gave a short nod. Drew was not a surprise to Michael, since he knew all about David's indiscretions. "You knew, and you didn't tell us?" Max asked, a little offended. Noah looked ready to tear his hair out when Michael nodded again. "Why?" Michael began a series of hand gestures and sign language. At least, that's what Drew thought it was. It was not traditional sign language that he understood thanks to a deaf neighbor growing up. "He doesn't speak?" Max nodded and talked quietly to Drew as he watched Michael's explanation. "He can, but he gets it mixed up. It's a condition from an operation that he had. He's not deaf, and he understands everything perfectly, so do not treat him like he's dumb." It was obvious to Drew that Max felt protective of their older brother because of his disability. "Wasn't going to. What is he saying?" "That he had reasons for not telling us." Max shook his head in wonder. "Like trying to protect the two of us?" "From what?" Drew questioned. "From the disappointment of our father. Plus, according to Michael, some of our newfound relatives might not be the best of people." Max shrugged. "I guess it's not like some of them would not try to take advantage of the situation. Just how many new siblings do we have?" Michael looked at Max a little guiltily. "You mean there's more than just him?" Noah pointed. "Well, I have got a sister and a brother," Drew said dryly. "More than that?" asked Max. Michael gave another short nod. "How many?" Noah wanted to know. "Just how many other kids does Dad have? How many affairs did he have? This is going to devastate Mom." Michael immediately put a finger to his lips in a universal shush gesture. "She has to know," Max said reasonably. "It's not like we can hide this." "Why not?" Noah threw his hands in the air. "Michael's been hiding it for how long?" Michael grimaced. "I managed to get Morgan to sleep despite all the noise." A woman came into the room. She paused in surprise, looking at Drew. "Oh, wow. You do look so much alike." "So I have been told," Drew said dryly. "This is my wife, Paget." Max introduced her. "Paget, this is Drew. This is the guy that saved my life." "Thank you so much for doing that." Paget took his hand in greeting. "If you ever need anything, please let us know." "What I need is Kelly's phone number." Drew hauled out the bag of prescription drugs and set it on the table. "She's a nurse that used to work at Mercy. I want a second opinion on all these medications that have been prescribed for Bethany, especially the ones that have been issued in the last 3 days. I understand that you know her?" "That's a lot of pills," Paget said faintly as Noah picked a few of the containers out of the bag and started looking at them. Max searched through his phone, coming up with the contact information. "Here." A cell phone trilled, and Bethany automatically reached in her coat pocket, pulling it out. She clicked off the alarm. She grabbed the bag of drugs in confusion. "I don't know which ones I'm supposed to take." "None of them." Drew pulled the bag away from her. "No," Bethany protested. She furrowed her brows together. "The alarm went off. It is time to take my pills. They were on the kitchen table, but now they're not. I don't know where I am. Where am I?"
"Bethany."
Drew pulled out a chair and sat in front of her.
"You don't need to take any pills."
"I have to." Bethany began to be agitated. She bit her lip as her body trembled. "I need to take my pills on time."
"Why?" he asked softly. "What happens if you do not take them?"
She shook her head and looked around her, lost. "I don't know. Something bad."
"Something bad is going to happen if you don't take your pills?"
Drew asked gently, trying to draw out more details from her. Bethany nodded. She began to sob. "I cannot remember. I'm so scared, but I cannot remember."
"What is going to happen?" he questioned her,
but she just shook her head and kept crying. Noah gave Drew a look of warning as he crouched beside her, putting a hand on her knee.
"It's okay, Beth. We're right here, and nothing bad is going to happen. I promise."
Paget set down 3 white tablets and a glass of water. "Here, Bethany.
There are your pills. You should take them now."
Bethany gratefully scooped them up and swallowed as Paget flashed the concerned group of men the container of Tic Tacs that she had substituted. "What is going on?" Max frowned in concern. "That is what I hoped to find out." Drew used Max's proffered phone and put the call on speaker as he dialed Kelly's number. It rang twice before a child picked up. "You have reached Kelly Ramsley's phone. How can I direct your call?" "Caden, we need to speak to Kelly," said Max. "It's Max Ramsley." "Hey, Max, I'll get her," replied Caden. "Mom, phone!" A moment later, they could hear Kelly. "Hello?" "Kelly, this is Andrew Colburn." Drew identified himself. "Hey! I always wondered what happened," Kelly said excitedly. "Are you okay? Did you recover fully from the stabbing?" "I'm fine," Drew said shortly, ignoring the surprised looks he received from the others in the room. "I'm a detective with the local police department. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions since you are a nurse and should have some expertise on medications." "Okay," she consented. "I'm not a doctor, but I will help if I can." "Great." Drew asked her if she knew the doctors that had prescribed the medications and what her opinion was of them. "The one doctor I don't know. He must be in private practice or at another hospital. The other two doctors consult at Mercy Hospital," confirmed Kelly. "To be totally honest, I think Dr. Mendez is a drug pusher. He really does not do any therapies, nor does he appear to be overly concerned about his patients. Dr. Holly Ershman is a good doctor. She cares about her patients and puts in the extra effort. She has a good reputation." Drew had sorted out the containers of medications. "She is major prescriber of patient I am investigating. In fact, she prescribed 9 different medications in just the past 3 days for this one person." "That does not sound like her." Kelly sounded surprised. "Can you receive picture texts?" he asked. "I'd like to show you what has been prescribed and get your take on what it is supposed to do for the patient." "Okay," Kelly agreed. Drew began to send her pictures of each container, starting with the most recent prescriptions and their dosages. "I divided them up based on their optimal results," Noah said of the groupings he had made. "Most of these are sedative in nature." "The patient is on all of that?" Kelly's tone conveyed her disbelief. "At those doses?" "Yes. Those are all in the last 3 days. 6 weeks ago, she was prescribed." Drew continued with the medications, taking pictures and sending them. "Then Dr. Mendez prescribed." He finished with the first doctor's prescriptions and waited to see what Kelly would say. "This makes absolutely no sense," she said, confused. "What do you mean, Tinkerbell?" Drew absently used the nickname he had given her at the hospital when he first met her. "The first doctor was giving your patient a small regulated dose of anti-anxiety medications, some mood blockers, some antidepressants. Not exactly something to be worried about, but maybe not the best combination of drugs, as they could be known to make people a little unemotional," advised Kelly. "Dr. Mendez upped the dosage of certain drugs and lowered other ones. I would say your patient was fully functioning under his care, but still might not have the capacity of feeling. They would feel numb. It suggests the patient might have some psychiatric issues, like memory trauma with those types of meds." "With those types of medications, the patient was likely trying to avoid the traumatic memories, and the drugs would suppress long-term memories," advised Noah. At Drew's surprised look, he explained, "I head up the scientific research division at Ramsley Pharmaceuticals." "What about Dr. Ershman?" Drew asked Kelly, who was particularly interested in the most recent medications. "That is where it gets weird." She sounded confused through the phone line. "At first, Dr. Ershman clears away all the old drugs. She starts a vitamin routine and a drug that is known to enhance memory. I've seen it used in dementia or Alzheimer's patients with good results. On someone younger, it would be used to try to stimulate old or buried memories, probably. With all the old drugs gone, the patient should have a clear head, and their emotions should be more prominent." "That's a good thing, right?" questioned Max. He looked at Bethany in apprehension. She was just sitting and staring at nothing. "Maybe, but then it's like a complete turnaround with a prescription from the last 3 days, a thoughtful Kelly said. "I would have to look a couple of them up, but most of these are used in what nurses like to call the zombie cocktail. It's used to make very difficult psych ward patients pliable and easy to handle. At these doses, I would guess your patient was on suicide watch or was extremely violent. What hospital is she in? She's not, said Drew. What do you mean she's not in a hospital? Kelly was astonished. There's no way that anyone should be on the zombie cocktail outside of a clinical setting. Not only is it dangerous medically, they need to be monitored for drug reactions, but it's dangerous physically. Patients could chop off an arm and not realize they're bleeding to death, or drive a car and kill someone. It is reckless not to have them committed and on this plethora of medications. Please tell me she's at least in private care with 24-hour nursing? I found her alone in her apartment, Drew admitted. Noah cursed and took Bethany's hand. Are they trying to kill her? Kelly was astounded. Privately, Drew wondered if someone was trying to do just that. If they were, it would be connected to her trying to regain her memories. Something happened on that boat, and Drew intended to find out what. Tinkerbell, how long will it take for the drugs to get out of her system? Is it safe for her to go cold turkey? How long do you think she's been on them? Questioned Kelly. I saw her 3 days ago, and she was fine, answered Drew. She's not on anything like this. She was alert. Then she should not have any serious reactions to going without medications. Kelly hesitated. Again, I am not a doctor. If anything seems off or she starts having a reaction, you should get her to a hospital right away. It will probably be a full day or two before she returns to normal. Drew thanked Kelly for her time and expertise before ending the call. You want to tell us how you know Beth and what is really going on here? Noah demanded. Drew glowered at Noah, who was crouched beside Bethany, still holding one of her hands. He did not like it. It should not matter. He barely knew her, yet he did not like it one bit. She has asked me to investigate a matter for her. Drew was not going to tell this snotty rich man much. I'm a detective. When I could not get a hold of her by phone, I dropped by her apartment and found her like this, all drugged up. Why didn't you just bring her to the hospital? Asked Max. Why come here? I think Bethany's life is in danger, sighed Drew. A hospital is a very public setting where it could be difficult to ensure her safety. Also, I knew you might have the contact information for Kelly. I wanted a medical opinion on all these prescriptions. Who would want to hurt Beth? Noah questioned angrily. I have an idea. Drew grimaced. It was all connected to the boat, in his opinion. Maybe she should go rest. Mrs. Ramsley, do you have a room where Bethany could lie down? Then I would like to talk to all of you. I need to know more about her childhood, her friends and family, anything that you think might be relevant. Paget moved forward to take Bethany's hand. Beth, would you like to lay down? Bethany looked at her in confusion. Do I know you? Noah gently turned Bethany's face to look at him. Hey, Beth, you remember me? She gave him a small smile. Hi, Noah. Hi. He smiled back. I'm going to pick you up, and we are going to tuck you into bed for a little nap. Okay? Bethany nodded. I am tired. Okay. Noah stood up, picking up Bethany. He followed Paget to a bedroom. Drew did not like it at all. He had gotten used to picking her up and rescuing her out of scrapes. It did not sit well with him that Noah was taking over. Max put a hand on Drew's shoulder. It hits hard, doesn't it? I have no idea what you're talking about, muttered Drew. He did know what Max was referring to. He just stubbornly did not want to admit it. There was no way he was falling for Bethany Searson. No way at all. Noah and Beth used to date. Max let go of that little bombshell, watching Drew to gauge his reaction. They were engaged for a few hours before they broke it off. Who broke it off? Drew did his best to show no reaction at all. He kept his breathing even and his face impassive. He was beginning to hate this Noah guy. It was too strong of a reaction, which meant Bethany was starting to get under his skin. Not good. She did. However, it was because he was in love with someone else. He's happily married now with kids, Max informed him. Happily married, but carrying his former fiancée into a bedroom. Drew gritted his teeth and looked sharply at Max. Does he have any reason to want Bethany dead? What? No! Max was incredulous. You're joking, right? Right now, everyone is a suspect, Drew informed him. I believe this was an attempted murder. Michael made a motion and looked inquiringly at them. How do you know for certain? Max asked Michael. It could have been a mix-up with the doctor over prescribing meds. There were cameras in her apartment. Drew watched their reactions. There was nothing but surprise and a little revulsion. Someone has been watching her. Someone has been trying to kill Beth. Max breathed in surprise. Why? That is what I'm going to find out. Once I know why, then I will know who. Drew scowled. Tell me everything you know about her and a boat called Sweet Bethany. If you enjoyed Chapter 6 of Love and Lies, look for Chapter 7. Please consider sharing this video to your other social media. This helps the algorithms and thus helps me grow my channel. I really appreciate it when you do little things like this. Happy listening!